Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Scaling Station podcast, where we highlight how real estate and software leaders are rethinking the way deals get done. I'm your host, Will Radowski, and today I'm joined by Sam Chlebowski, co founder of Motion.io. Sam, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Doing great. Off to a great start this Monday, my favorite day of the week. So couldn't be more excited to kick it off this way. Are you Polish?
I'm Slovakian, Czech.
Okay. Okay.
You?
Well, Slovakian and Polish.
Okay.
My
But the
grandfather's
name,
Polish, so that's why I have the SKI.
yeah, awesome. Well, I've been really looking forward to this. Before we really dive in, if you wouldn't mind just telling the audience a bit about yourself, that'd be great.
My name is Sam Chlebowski, one of the co-founders for Motion.io. We are a software platform built for onboarding your clients, collecting files, contracts, forms in streamlined white labeled client portals. On the back end, you, your team, they get a robust project management system to standardize your onboarding practices, set up reusable templates that allow you to kick work off in seconds, and then at the same time, give you a really clean, robust way to manage your projects, check in, communicate with clients, and be able to engage with your clients in the most effective way that ultimately increases your ability to take on more clients, so increasing client capacity and providing a great customer experience, turning customers into raving fans of your business because of how great the experience was for them.
And you've been around since like 2022, or when did you start Motion.io?
Yeah, so we were incorporated in 2022. We were working on the business for maybe a year, a little bit under that before that, when we were all kind of different roles. And then we came together in 2023 and have seen some great growth during that time. And the product has made some really cool leaps and bounds since then.
Nice. Was there a moment when you realized you wanted to launch the business, or maybe if you could walk us through your background just a bit?
The origin story of Motion.io really comes down to this pain that myself, my co-founders all experienced in our previous businesses. So my CEO and co-founder Perry, I was employee number 3 at his previous business. It was a website and marketing services company. There was a service portion of it and the software portion of it. And at our high point, we were onboarding 350 clients. To be able to do that and work at that scale, so 350 new clients every single month, who we all needed forms for them to complete, to sign things, payments, it became a roadblock at various points in our journey. And the way we were eventually able to scale up is we built this really robust system for them to see what things needed to be completed, where they were in the process. It was built on the back end of WordPress, but we had to self-develop that. And it took way longer than we would have wanted. There was no out-of-the-box tools to be able to do that. We had started talking. It would have been, I guess, late 2020 or 2021, maybe end of 2021, just throwing around some ideas of like, because we exited the previous business in 2020 and realized, hey, we have this big problem. Let's, talk about it. Let's start validating it. We looped in our third co-founder, Zach, he's CTO of Motion.io, and discovered that we had a lot of overlap with his similar experiences. He had a website and marketing business tailored to the funeral home, death care industry, if you will. We did some initial validation on that, found out, I think we spoke with maybe 125, 150 people. They all have these problems too. They want to be able to onboard their clients effectively. They want to automate big parts of the repeatable process so they don't need to send that same email every time with that same form and type it up manually. They want to know when things get done and make themselves look really good to the client from day one by providing that really professional, tailored experience. I started with an initial version of the product that was focused on client feedback, of sending things like designs or pictures or PDFs or videos to clients, getting that back from them. Product evolved and we pivoted it one or two times, depending on what you define as a pivot. But first, we pivoted into project management and it was just a mess. So we had to focus tightly on just like collecting things from clients. Now we've got to this place in Motion.io where it's a seamless blend of both project management and client portals, automating things as you go and making it easy for clients to get what they need, and also for clients to be able to ask questions and submit requests. These are all the types of things that we are looking at now with Motion.io and how it's evolved.
That's awesome. And I think last time we spoke, you mentioned your core customers were SaaS agencies, consultants. Were they always your ideal customer profile, or did that change with any of the pivots?
Yeah, it's really evolved over time. I would say that still today, the biggest bulk of our customers are agencies, consultants, software companies, kind of in that bucket. One of the areas where our product works really well, which is a little bit surprising to us, is mortgage lending and also real estate. I think that is because a lot of those businesses in real estate related lending are underserved by most software options. If they had wanted this to be able to automate things, to be able to collect the things they need, previously, like their only option was turning to a tool like Salesforce or custom developing something. And we've seen a ton of those types of customers come in just because we do the things that mortgage lenders, real estate agents need, where there's contracts that you have to sign. There are things that you have to approve. So if you're selling a house, right, and you get a photographer to take pictures for a client, you want them to look at those pictures before you post the listing for them. So we make it easy to do that. On the buy side, that can also look at things like approving houses that a client might be interested in, sending them pictures directly in their portal for feedback. On the lending side, it's the mountains of paperwork that people are doing, oftentimes manually, to get a new, get that pre-approval issued, get a real estate deal closed. It's a mountain of paperwork, and a lot of it can be templatized and made into a repeatable process. That's why we're starting to see great success there, in addition to our core of agencies and consultants and software companies.
As a novice real estate investor, it's insane how much paperwork there is, from inspections to all the approvals. So that definitely resonates.
We see it too. It seems like it's even more intense on commercial side, where you're involving multiple parties. It isn't just like a couple or a family. There's all of these different stakeholders and things that need to happen to get a deal across the line. We've seen some big interest there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Curious if you could kind of explain the difference of working with Motion.io, maybe through one of those real estate lenses or profiles, like how scattered it can be without a product like this, or if you could just shed some light on the approach you guys take versus not having.
Yeah, that's a really great question. How are these types of businesses doing it now? And how could they be doing it to save time, to increase their client capacity, to scale up their business? We have one client that's pretty interesting. They have an agency, but they've expanded to multiple states. And all of the sales they do are like almost entirely remote. And the way that they're able to use Motion.io is they bring clients who want to buy a house in and upload to their client portal pictures of different houses, forms that ask them about like what they're looking for. Maybe there's a meeting or two in there, but they're able to work in all of these multiple states and scale up their business in a meaningful way because they're saving so much time by standardizing their process and automating things. To go back to your original question, a lot of the tools that we find people, especially in real estate lending, coming to us are using, oftentimes they do have a CRM of contacts. And that's something I found is largely pretty standard. There's some people still working off a spreadsheet, but what I often find is that once a client raises their hand and say, hey, I want to work with you, or hey, I'm interested in going with you to get my mortgage, all of that process happens once they sort of raise their hand, is oftentimes happening with spreadsheets and manual follow-up emails. It's not templatized. Everybody in the organization or on the team is doing things a little bit differently. Maybe they have their own spreadsheet with their own process. And the amount of time that we find people are spending checking in on things. Hey, did the client provide this or not? Oh, okay. Well, we still need a pay stub from their last 2 weeks before we can get the mortgage signed on the dotted line. We still need to know the client's budget. Things are getting delayed in that process of collecting what clients need because it's all operating in spreadsheets and in silos and separate systems that also don't give other members of your team insight into what things need to be done and where those roadblocks are occurring. So with Motion.io, what we really offer, the ability to get visibility into the projects you're running. You can see exactly where things are being held up, what clients are waiting on, and keep the wheels in motion. But then on the client side, we make it really clear to them, hey, this is what you've done. This is what we still need to keep things moving and to keep things progressing. I find that one of the big problems with email alone is that people's inboxes are just so inundated, and there's no great system for tracking a thing that you need to do. And it's also easy. I know I'm guilty, not in my work inbox, but in my personal inbox of like, hey, State Farm asks me for an odometer reading. I can put off that for a long time because it's like, how do I log in? How do I provide this thing that they need? How that looks instead is your client clicks a login list link, takes them right to the task they need to complete. They can provide that thing right all in one screen. No logging in, no getting confused about how to provide this thing or where to send it to. It's just right there for them on their screen, on their phone, and they can complete it really quickly.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. Speaking to founders and as an entrepreneur myself, I know a lot of those tasks, they're like, hey, I'll get to that. It just kind of takes a back seat, especially when other things are popping up midday. So that's definitely important. Just kind of zooming out and looking at automation as a whole, wondering if you could share your philosophy. It seems like you're trying to automate a lot of things so that professionals or clients could be more present and more tuned in. You've been a power user of Zapier. And if you could share your thoughts on automation and AI here in September 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. With the way that we approach automation in general within the project, and I think that it is also a helpful lens to view however you might be using AI or automation in your day-to-day workflow. There are things within business that can be automated because they follow a consistent process. Those are always the things that I'm looking to automate away, in a sense, where there are things I don't have to think about anymore. The way that we've built the Motion.io project, what it gives the businesses that use us to do is to be able to offer a much better experience than they can before and do it at scale as their business grows, because they're saving time on the front end. They can spend that extra 15 minutes talking with the client on a phone and working through a problem together, because there's nothing that can replace that deep human knowledge that comes from working with a client directly. And it's important to be able to download that, but you're not going to have time to do all of those things if you're running around sending another 3, 4, 5 follow-up emails, trying to update things on your spreadsheet manually of like what's done and what hasn't been done. When you can use automation and AI in a way that saves you time on the front end, it's going to make your client experience a whole lot better, even zooming out away from Motion.io. Just the time savings of being able to reinvest that back into getting to know your clients, giving them the results they want. Everybody's going to be happier at the end of the day.
100%. Yeah. Cool. And just kind of looking holistically at Motion, do you have like a North Star? Or what's next for Motion over the next 12 months?
We have a lot of big things planned for the product. One of the things we just released last week, which has been highly requested from our users for a long time, is time tracking. If you're working with contractors or internal employees where they need to track your time, previously that wasn't possible to do natively in Motion.io. Last week, we released the ability to track time that's available for every team member in your account. The great part about being able to track time directly in Motion.io is that it all operates on a task by task basis. When you're tracking time for something, you have context of like, what is that task that I have completed? How much time did it take? I can see it right there. There's no bouncing around. That lays the foundation for some other pretty cool functions, which is going to be our built-in invoicing, allowing customers to accept payments directly through the platform and trigger those payments at the correct time. For example, when a specific stage is completed, sending them automatically the invoice to pay, you've completed this stage of work, which might be the final invoice. We also have some interesting ideas for how we're approaching AI within the platform. We have been really intentional about the way we've incorporated AI thus far, not making any promises like, hey, this thing is going to run your entire business, but instead focusing on the jobs that are taking people a long time to do in our platform and seeing what can be done with AI. So some of our first things that we've introduced are the ability to create forms from AI, the ability to create entire project templates and lists of tasks from AI, of using basically copying in maybe that documentation in your spreadsheet, pasting that into motion.io, getting you a systematized, automated, and repeatable process for your work in just a couple of seconds by feeding our AI that information. We've introduced AI clients, which allow you to test a workflow. Instead of using your client as the guinea pig, you can invite an AI client to a sample project in motion.io, run through that process, see where the inefficiencies are, and make those improvements. Over the next year and change, we really want to expand into, okay, we've done that on the client side with AI of running a sample client. Can we bring that into the project management side of motion.io, where you can have an AI team member that reviews information for you, plugs things in from one task into another, jobs like that people are doing that we know they'd like to be able to automate. So trying to be really intentional with it, but also want to make sure that we're not missing out on opportunities, build the best product we possibly can with the newest technology available to us, which is, for all its hype, artificial intelligence.
Yeah. 1,000%. I really like that. Cool. First of all, thanks again so much for coming on. Wanted to ask a couple quick hitting ones. Curious if there's an underrated tool in your stack right now besides motion.io that you really like using with AI or tech overall.
That's a great question. I have a good answer that people might not have heard before. There's this tool called Screen Studio that I found out on Reddit. You used to be able to buy a forever license for like $100. This tool is super cool because I do a lot of quick screen recordings of our app. And what Screen Studio does is you download it on your Mac and you can pop it up at any time. It uses AI to coordinate the zooming in, the zooming out on the hot points. It makes it really smooth. And I can record something and I don't even have to edit it sometimes. I can just click export and I have this really great way to show off our product, show off the things you can do with it in just a couple of seconds. Screen Studio, I would highly recommend, especially for anybody who does podcasting or any type of video work. It's a really cool tool. And maybe they've switched to subscription licenses, but I bought it and it was $100 license forever, which is pretty unheard of. So
I'll have to check that one out for sure. Another one, curious if you remember your first automation or Zap that you ever set up.
I actually do. We started using Zapier at Brighter Vision, the business previous to this one. We had to be one of the first couple hundred customers because it was early. And one of the first things was very simple. Hey, this form is submitted on our website. Add this information to our CRM, send a notification email. And that was like the first one, which I also think though is pretty illustrative of like an easy way for somebody to get into Zapier, because that's something I help set up for our customers all the time. If a form is submitted on their website, send that information to motion.io with the client's name, the client's email, any other information on the form, and then create a new project and give that client immediate access to their client portal so they can start doing the things that you need them to do. Maybe it's that setting up a call, filling out a form, signing a contract, whatever it might be. That's a quick, easy way to automate some really tedious work of getting an inquiry in the right place that I think is really cool. So it still holds up. One of my first automations, and continue to use it, continue to help people set things up similar in their businesses. So
Love it. Yeah, I always recommend starting small with that stuff, like just a
yeah.
couple steps. But also I get like my first Slack notification from a positive email response and just being like, what? uh,
Yeah.
cool.
It is
And
funny
then,
though. There's some ways to go super deep in Zapier. Some things that like I didn't know existed maybe until even like a year and a half ago. The ability to use Zapier's like formatting options. So if you have a date that's like formatted incorrectly, you can automatically correct it to your standard day, month, year. And if a client name comes in as first and last name in the same field, you can split that up into two and like port it over to your CRM. So there's some crazy stuff you can do. So it's fun.
make things a whole lot easier. Cool. And then curious if there's been a podcast or a book that's changed the way you think about growth and growing a business.
Yeah. So one of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to recently is the Product Market Fit Show. It's by a founder who I forget when they exited their business, but there's some really interesting guests on that podcast. And it's really good for because they get really into like the origin story. It's primarily founders on the show. And I find those origin stories immensely inspiring, hearing the beginning to end journey. And that's always something they focus on. Another really great one that I listen to is Lenny's podcast, which is more, it skews more like product and product development than it does founder, but still some really interesting insights on development, go to market strategy, things like that. In terms of books, one of the really interesting books that I've read that definitely inspires some of the way that I work is by the founders of Basecamp, Rework. Some really interesting thoughts that were, I think, pretty controversial at the time it came out, probably not controversial anymore, but a really interesting approach to work, to building a brand, talking about how 10 years ago they were early on to this sort of build in public idea and how showing up and being your authentic self and telling an authentic story is going to attract people to you. So some really interesting stuff in there as well.
I think founder-led marketing and being a pro at storytelling is
Yeah.
huge right now. If the audience wants to follow along, are you on LinkedIn? I'll make sure to leave links in the description below.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Sam Chlebowski. And then Motion.io, we also have a super active YouTube channel. If you're interested in seeing the product, I do a product live stream every single Friday, except when it's a major holiday or I'm on vacation. But I think out of the last 12 weeks, I've only missed once. So pretty good. We do live streams and have great content on how to use Motion.io and also how our customers are using us. So there's some really good case studies. And for anybody in real estate or lending, definitely encourage you to check out a cool case study we did with a company called Rockets Day, which manages a couple hundred properties and how they use Motion.io. I know you'll link that in the description, but that's a good one as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure to get those in there. Sam, thanks again. This has been great, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much, Will. It was great.
Alrighty, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you.